Hello, everybody. It's Mr. Johnson with your daily math lesson. Today, we are doing lesson 311, the 11th lesson in Unit 3, and it is called Adding a Group. So, a couple things before we get started. This lesson is basically goes along with the use a fact that you know to help you solve a fact that you don't know. Okay? That's what this lesson is going to be like. I'm going to teach you how to use a fact that you know to solve a fact that you don't know. And with my class, we've been talking about doing that for a while now. Also, this is a strategy that you would use until you get your multiplication facts memorized. It's going to be so much faster and easier if you have your multiplication facts memorized. I promise you. It's going to help you in the fourth grade, in the fifth grade, and then in middle school and high school, and your whole life to memorize those facts. But until you get them memorized, we want to show you some strategies that will let you find the answer. It's going to take a little longer than if you have them memorized, because that doesn't take any time at all. But it will work. Okay, so I just wanted to point out we're going to use the adding a group strategy to solve a fact, use a fact that we know to solve a fact that we don't. And it is a good strategy to use until you get your multiplication facts memorized. That is the number one thing that you should be doing. But it's always good to have a backup plan. And this is an example of having a backup plan. All right? Okay, we're going to go right on to the math message today. So on your slates or on a piece of paper, or if you're using your everyday math program and you've logged in, then you can do it that way. But our math message is basically we want to make an array. It says drag the arrows next to the array tool to show 5 rows of chairs with 4 chairs in each row. So that's what I want you to do on your slates or on a piece of paper is draw an array that has 5 rows of chairs with 4 chairs in each row. Go ahead and do that on your slate. Hit pause to let your students finish that work. Okay, well, on your slates or on a piece of paper, you probably would have done that like this. 5 rows of chairs with 4 chairs in each row. So you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's going to be 4 in each row. Well, you already have 1. So you have to add 3 more. Okay, so you got the idea. I'm not going to do the whole thing because it takes forever. But we do have this cool tool now that we can use. So we want to make sure that we have, whoopsie. Okay, we have this array maker now, the array tool. So we want 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just dragging the arrow down. So there's my rows. Remember, you always want to make your rows first. The first number is always the rows, and the second number is always how many items are in each row. Well, we have 4 chairs in each row. So I'm going to drag this over. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's just a quick and easy way to make a 5 by 4 array. Now, the number model for that, of course, would be 5 times 4 equals, hopefully you have that memorized. If not, you could skip count by 5 4 times, 5, 10, 15, 20. So 5 times 4 equals 20. That's how you would have done that math message today. So here's 1 group of 4, 2 groups of 4, 3 groups of 4. Oh, I made too many, didn't I? Let's fix that. Okay, I bet a lot of you noticed that I didn't do a 5 by 4 array. I did a 5 by 5 array. But now you can see I've got 1 group of 4, 2 groups of 4, 3 groups of 4, 4 groups of 4, 5 groups of 4. 5 times 4 is 20. Now, here is our new problem. We've got more people coming. We need more chairs. So we need a whole nother row of chairs. So we have 5 rows of 4. We need to add another row of 4. So on your slates, go ahead and do that. Okay, let's talk about it. Well, we had a 5 by 4 array, which we know is 20 chairs. and we're going to add another row of 4. So think about that. We have 20 chairs now. We're adding another row of 4. So now we have 6 rows, right? 6 rows of 4. Went from 5 rows of 4 to 6 rows of 4. So now what we're really solving is 6 times 4. Well, I bet some of you have your 6s memorized. Or not your 6s, probably your 4s. So you automatically know what 6 times 4 is, and that is awesome. But I bet a lot of you don't have your 4s memorized yet. So you could very easily use 5 times 4 equals 20 to figure out what 6 times 4 is. Because if you think about it, all we did was added one more group of 4. So 6 times 4 would be the same as 5 times 4 plus 4 more. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 more equals 24. So we used what we know about 5 times 4 to figure out what 6 times 4 is. We added another group. We have 5 groups of 4 up here. Now we move to 6 groups of 4. That's one more group of 4, which means you have to add 4 to this. So that's an example of adding a group and using a fact that you know to figure out one that you don't know. So in this case, what we call 5 times 4 is we call it a helper fact. It's the fact that we know and the fact that we use to help us solve one that we don't know. So find your helper fact. In this case, it was 5 times 4. And since we have our times 2s, our times 5s, and our times 10s already memorized, I hope you do. You should by now. We can use those facts as helper facts. We could also maybe use our doubles facts as helper facts. Any fact that you know can be a helper fact. And the more you get memorized, the more multiplication facts you get memorized, the more helper facts you have. All right, a new problem, so clear off your slates. Javon has 2 boxes of crayons with 8 crayons in each box. How many crayons does he have altogether? I'm going to hit pause. You can hit pause, I should say. Give your kids a chance to do this work, and then we'll talk about it. All right, I'm going to use my pen tool because it's quicker. I'm going to first solve this using an array. 2 boxes of crayons, which to me means 2 rows. There's my 2 rows. 8 crayons in each box. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I better count this time because I make mistakes sometimes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Now I want to line up my X's as best I can with the ones above them. So there's 2 rows of 8, which is 2 times 8. And if you know your doubles facts or you have your 2's memorized, then you know quickly and easily that 2 times 8 is 16. If you didn't have that memorized, you'd have to say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, or something like that. Of course, another way you could have thought of this one is make circles and call them boxes. Those are my 2 boxes of crayons. I've got 8 crayons in each box. You could make 8 tally marks or 8 X's or whatever inside those 2 boxes, but I like to just make the number 8. So now I know I have 2 8s, and I know my number model is 2 times 8. Okay, now we want to add a box of crayons and figure out how many crayons we have now if we add a box. So hit pause, figure that out, have a discussion with your class, and then come back and I'll show you the strategy to do that. Okay, well, if we're going to add another box of crayons, that means I'm going to need another row. I'm going to make these my adding a group. That's what I'm doing now, right? I'm adding a group. That's the strategy we're talking about today. I'm going to add my group in red just so you can see the difference. So I'm adding a whole nother box, a whole nother row, in other words, of 8 crayons. And if you want to think of it as this kind of a diagram, then you'd have to add a third 8, right? So now, instead of 2 times 8 equals 16, we're really solving 3 times 8. Now, I know some of you have been working really, really hard, and you're just good at memorizing things, and you know what 3 times 8 is. But if you don't, then you know 2 times 8 is 16, and we're adding another 8. We're adding another group of 8. So 16 plus 8 is another way to think of 3 times 8. And 3 times 8 is 24. So we used our helper fact, 2 times 8 is 16, to help us figure out 3 times 8, the fact that we don't know yet. So we used our helper fact, a fact that we know, to help us figure out a fact that we don't know, which is what today's lesson is all about. Okay, everybody. Next thing we're going to do, you can probably guess. We're going to work on page 90 in our math journals. Okay, page 90 in our math journals is practice adding a group using the adding a group strategy. And don't forget, Mr. Johnson says math is sweet. So work on page 90. And then I think what I'm going to do is show you how to do 90 after you have a chance to work on it. And that way we'll make sure everyone's on the same page and knows what they're doing. And then you can go on to number 2 on page 91. So we're really doing page 90 and page 91. So hit pause, let your children work on at least number 1, and then come back and I'll show you how to do number 1. And then you can go off and do number 2 on your own. Okay, so number 1 on page 90 says, sketch a picture to show 2 rows of jars with 7 jars in each row. And of course, the question is how many jars are there in all? So here's a way you could have done that and set that up. I'm going to use my cool little array maker here. So 2 rows. Have you noticed that sometimes I forget to change my tools and I use my pen tool? I'm working on that. So 2 rows. 1, 2 rows. How many in each row, everybody? 7 jars in each row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there is a 2 by 7 array, which of course means the number model for that is 2 times 7. Okay, so what is 2 times 7, everybody? 2 times 7 is 14. Okay, so 2 groups of 7 is 14. Now, you should have had that in your multiplication number model, but now you have to use a colored pencil to add another row of jars to show 3 rows. Your teacher may have not given you colored pencils and said using a regular pencil is fine. But if you have a colored pencil, that's a good way to show the group that you added. So use a colored pencil to add another row of jars to show 3 rows of jars, 3 rows of 7. So here we go. We're going to add 1 group of 7 jars, right? So we're adding 1 more group of 7. Here we go. And now we have 3 times 7. Well, 3 times 7 doesn't equal 14. 3 times 7 is going to equal 14 plus another 7. Okay, 14 plus 7. So if you have your 3's memorized, of course, you know what 3 times 7 is. It's not 14. But if you don't have your 3's memorized, then you can add 14 plus 7. You can maybe add your 1's first. 7 plus 4 is 11. And then 11 plus another 10 is 21. 3 times 7 is 21.